The Bronx air bites at Nick's face as he makes his way toward the Fulton Fish Market just before midnight. The warehouse looms like a fortress, lit by harsh fluorescent lights that hum overhead and cast sharp shadows across the wet concrete floor. The smell hits immediately, a pungent cocktail of brine, raw fish, diesel fumes, and a cold metal that seeps into his clothes and clings to his skin no matter how many showers he takes. It's the kind of smell that follows you, a constant reminder that this is not ordinary work. Inside, the market is alive with relentless motion. Forklifts weave through the narrow aisles, their headlights bouncing off of stacks of styrofoam crates filled with cod, halibut, and scallops packed on ice. Pallets crash against each other as men shove, drag, and load them onto waiting trucks. The concrete is slick underfoot, every step a careful negotiation, and the noise never stops. The clatter of fish scales hitting the floor, the shriek of pallet jacks, the echo of shouted orders from men who've worked this grind for decades. Nick moves like a machine. Every shift is a battle against sleep and fatigue, ice stinging from the mix of cold air and salty mist. Sweat cools instantly on his skin, leaving him shivering, and every step across the icy dock feels like walking on glass. Yet, every crate he lifts, every fish he hauls, every truck he loads brings him closer to his goal. It's grueling, it's exhausting, it's brutal, but necessary. Because out here, under these unforgiving lights, Nick isn't just moving fish. He's buying his dream, one aching, relentless hour at a time. Welcome to the Throttle Culture Podcast, a space where design, history, and emotion meet horsepower. We celebrate the stories behind the builds and the people who see more than just a car. They see a connection. This is the first part of a 3-series episode. This chapter is all about perseverance, deception, and chasing a dream across state lines. Today's episode is about a 2003 Honda S2000. And the bond between Nick and this very specific S2K that has been with him through thick and thin. So let's get right into it. Nick tells me his love for cars started young. So young, in fact, he shows me a picture. It's a baby with the binky in his mouth, standing next to an engine block hanging off of a cherry picker. His family has a shop in Westchester, New York, mainly specialized in Lotus and other cars built for track racing. Hence, his love for that go-kart feel of driving something light and nimble. But at 17, he didn't have the funds to buy anything close to a Caterham or an Elise or an Exige, or even an Elan or an Esprit. So he struck a deal with the owner of the fish market, another track enthusiast and fellow S2K owner. Nick worked at this market overnight while he was still in high school, saving up every cent he earned so he could buy his own car. He wanted something practical, but also designed for the track. And so he landed on a Honda AP1 S2000. And before you ask, the answer is yes, it had to be an AP1. That 9,000 RPM redline was calling his name. The hunt became more memorable as he took a road trip down to Tennessee, but not before stopping in Florida. We'll get into that a little later. But he went to see this spa yellow AP1 S2K with 65,000 miles on it. Honestly, he probably could have found one in New York, but when you know exactly what you want, you stop at nothing to find it, right? And the Honda S2000 is a car that was built for the driver. All the passenger gets is a vent. This is a car that on a good year only sold around 8,000 in its 10-year production, and at the time shocked the world with a 2-liter naturally aspirated 16-valve motor pumping 246 horsepower at 9,000 RPM. No traction control, no nannies allowed. It just made more sense to him that this would be his entry into the track world. And the search turned into a journey, a road trip really, and the first stop, Miami, Florida. Nick and his dad rented a Chevy Spark. This is a car that looked more like a roller skate than a road trip companion. It buzzed down the highway with a tin can hum, and every pothole rattled through the seats. Gas mileage, fantastic. Cabin space, though, non-existent. And by the time they hit Georgia, their duffel bags were crammed into the footwells, and every snack wrapper felt like it took up half the car. Nick joked it felt like riding cross-country in a wind-up toy. Nearly 20 hours later, they rolled into Miami, stiff and exhausted, to finally see a bright yellow S2000. On paper, it sounded perfect, but in reality, it was a mess. The dashboard was scarred with holes from half-baked Jimmy-rigged electronics that had long since been ripped out. The seats were torn and split, their foam bulging through the cracks like old wounds. And the smell? Musty, sour, the kind of stench that clings to an interior and tells you that the car's been neglected for years. Whatever shine it once had was buried under abuse. It was a little too beat up and a little too overpriced. Just a really long drive for a letdown. But Nick wasn't willing to give up, so they hit the road again. But this time, they made a swap. Out went the Spark, and in came a Mazda 3. Compared to the Spark, it felt like a luxury sedan, a roomier cabin, smoother suspension, and still easy on gas. After hours trapped in the Spark, sliding into the Mazda felt like moving from the penalty box to business class. The long drive suddenly didn't feel quite so punishing. And so north they went, this time toward Tennessee. They pull into a Chevy dealer lot at sunrise, and there it was, a bright yellow Honda, and Nick couldn't take his eyes off of it. The sales manager barely asked for ID. No credit check, no paperwork. They just wanted this little Japanese race car gone. And it looked completely out of place, surrounded by Camaros and Silverados, all square jaws and swollen muscles, cars stuffed with V8s and LS motors that roared like sledgehammers when they fired up. But in the middle of all of that brute force sat the S2000, slim, sharp, and precise, a katana among broadswords, a wasp buzzing in a field of bulls. Where the others boasted thunder, this one promised a scream, a 2-liter engine that spun to $9,000, daring you to chase it. Nick and his dad caught that contrast instantly. After a 20-minute spin around the block, they pull over to talk about what their next move was. Is this going to be the one? Given how clean it was and how the drive just felt so real, Nick knew he was going to get this deal done. And so just like that, Nick was driving back home to New York in his semi-new S2000. Now, it didn't take long for it to earn the name Rotten Banana. Bright yellow paint, black rims, a playful title for a car that had no idea how hard his life was going to get. Right away, Rotten Banana was thrown into the deep end. 3 events at Lime Rock and 1 at Watkins Glen, all while still bone stock. And yet, it came alive on those tracks. The chassis felt tight and eager, the steering crisp and immediate. Every input from Nick's hands answered in real time. This little 2-liter engine sang after it cracked VTEC, building to that screaming $9,000 crescendo that turned heads at every lap. The suspension was firm but communicative, and it kept the car planted through corners, even as the rear threatened to snap loose if you got greedy with the throttle. The brakes hit hard and true, lap after lap without a hint of fade. It wasn't the fastest car in the paddock, not by a long shot, but it had a purity to it, a lightness, a balance that made every lap feel surgical, alive, and just a little dangerous. And through it all, Rotten Banana never missed a beat. And yes, that infamous lift oversteer, that bite without warning. It was dangerous, it was exhilarating, it was perfect. Now fast forward a few years, Nick is out of college. He's now working for Ford in Dearborn, Michigan as a design engineer. And the Rotten Banana is no longer stock, not even close. Well, that's the end of part 1. Stay tuned because the story of Rotten Banana is just getting started. And remember, everyone has a story tied to a car. Maybe it's a build that brought you closer to someone. Maybe it's a road trip that changed the way you see the world. Or maybe it's just a ride that gets you. At Throttle Culture, we want to hear yours. If you've got a story worth sharing about the cars that shaped you, the roads you've driven, or the moments you'll never forget, send it my way. Contact information is in the show notes, and we're taking submissions now. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about horsepowers or red lines. It's about the connection between driver and machine, between the miles and the memories. Sometimes that connection is raw, loud, and a little unpredictable, just like Rotten Banana. Thanks for riding with me. Until next time, stay driven.